So that's Bloom. That's the plugin I developed. You've heard my mixes. You might not know who I am, but I've worked with big artists. I've worked with Lil Tyler, Forgiato Blow, Stitches, G4 Boys, Nino Paid. List goes on and on. But it fixes a few problems that I've noticed in every single reverb plugin I've ever used, and adds emotion, adds depth, adds lushness. This is the reverb that I want to use. This is the reverb that I want to use in my beats, in my mixes, in my sessions. So the first issue that this plugin fixes is locking down your pre-delay in your decay to the mathematically correct times. Your pre-delay in your decay should be locked to your tempo, and based on the size of the room, the size of the space that the reverb is in, should be locked to that as well. Now let me show you how this works. You can see here the auto button. It just locks your times to auto mode. Turn it off. You can mess with the pre-delay. You can mess with the decay. Most producers starting out have no idea what pre-delay is. People take a while to even grasp these kinds of concepts. I made this reverb to help people who may not know or have as much knowledge in the math and science of audio engineering or audio, and give them an amazing sounding reverb. In this first acoustic guitar example, the BPM is 72.5. I like my guitars, especially at this BPM, to have that hall, kind of concert hall effect. Very spacey, emotional. So we're going to throw it on auto mode, leave it to hall, and as you can see, my pre-delay jumped to 103.4 and my decay jumped to 6.52 seconds. That's exactly where it should be. If I move this tempo, go all crazy, you can see the thing move. So next, I added an auto mode for the room size. Not necessary. It just basically, as you can see, you go to large. It's all divided like by quarters. So 25%, 50, 75, 100. Not mandatory, but if you're just unsure of yourself, you can always turn on auto mode for the room, but I like to dial it in myself. Diffuse mode. Diffusion is basically if you were in a room and there was nothing in it, you've walked inside some kind of abandoned building or abandoned room and you've clapped your hands and it's just so echoey because there's nothing in that room but walls. So there's no diffusion. If you up this diffusion knob, you're going to smooth out the reverb, smooth out those echoes, those delays, just smoothing it out. Obviously, if you turn it down, you're going to get more echo, more harshness. So I like to keep it up, but this is all to taste. Now, for character, it's basically affecting the texture of the tail end of the reverb. So a lower texture amount is going to give it more gritty, more, discrete echoes. A higher character, it's going to kind of like bunch up the reflections a bit and turn into like a thicker, fuzzier, more resonant kind of tone. And you're going to notice this more at, larger room size and just having a longer decay. So this is all just things that are adding tone and character to the reverb. Now, brightness, think of this like a high shelf. More bright is going to make it more crispier, more high end. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. The width mode, stereo wideness. I prefer my reverbs to be more wide than to be more mono. Obviously, it all comes down to mixing techniques. But in general, I like my reverbs to be wide. Tone, post-reverb tone. Obviously, you can cut some mud out, cut some highs out. That's kind of how I like to have it. Now, modulation in a nutshell is really just, it's movement in the tail that just keeps the reverb alive and moving instead of just sitting still. So it's just going to give it, think of it like an LFO, just kind of giving it some movement, some sauce. If you go too crazy with it, it's going to sound like the reverb is like detuned and out of pitch. So you want to kind of be easy with it, This is how deep you want it to move and how fast you want it to move. So I've got a set here for this example. And this is where the plugin shines the most. This is the best feature of the plugin, is what I call the Bloom engine. And the Bloom engine, without really going into much detail of how it works, it essentially is creating a pad, an ethereal ambient pad, out of the reverb tail. And you're going to really notice this when you're on large and hall mode. And what's great about this plugin, that also I've had issues with other reverbs, you can independently turn on just the Bloom engine, and I'll show you in a bit. But let's hear how the Bloom engine sounds on and off. We're going to start with it off. You can really hear the difference when you add in the Bloom. And this is the biggest feature of this plugin. It's essentially creating a pad out of the reverb. That's why I call it Bloom. It's kind of blooming into an ethereal pad layer. Just to really hear what the Bloom alone sounds like, I'll turn off the reverb. Make sure Bloom is enabled. And then I'll take my dry mix, turn it all the way down. What I love about this plugin too, I could run it in parallel twice. I could run it in parallel just for the regular reverb, make sure the Bloom mode is off, and then copy this into another channel and run it with the reverb off and the dry all the way down, but the Bloom on. So then that way, it gives you the freedom to EQ the reverb independently from the Bloom engine. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to send this to a track here. I'm also going to send this to 21 as well. So we've got our acoustic guitars on a track. I'm going to send this to the melody bus. That's cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two sends. I'm going to call this one Verb Bloom. We can send it to the melody bus. And then we're going to take our Bloom plugin, copy it over, twice. There we go. Maybe we can delete it off the master, or we'll just turn it off for now. Now, for the regular reverb, we're going to turn off the bloom. And we're going to make sure wet. We're going to put wet all the way up. Turn the dry down. Reverb on. Everything is cool. Now for the bloom. Essentially the same thing. Wet all the way up. Dry down, but reverb off. And keep bloom on. So the only thing that's coming through on our bloom send is the bloom. We're going to give this a cool color. So here we go. We're going to turn bloom down and just listen to the reverb for now. I don't know about you, but that reverb just sounds so good. This is very, very, very nice. Also, keep in mind, this guitar has no EQ on it, no compression on it. It's just dry as hell. Like, so I'm gonna pull up, you know, I'll just do stock FL because, you know, stock FL. When you got sends, always make sure you put it on the linear mode. So we're going to look at the bloom engine on the bloom plugin. Make sure that's on. All right, let's take a listen. And I'm actually going to put this reverb mix at 100 and let's go ahead. That to me sounds amazing. Honestly, that sounds amazing. Let's do a quick A/B just with the bloom engine. We'll just turn that off, bypass it, and compare it with the regular reverb. Both sound amazing. Dude, the way that bloom just adds so much emotion and ambience and just just makes that reverb sound alive. It just brings it to life. It's just not something you're going to get in Valhalla. It's not something you're going to get in any other reverb. You know, you're just not going to get it. So remember, we sent this to the same channel. So let's just see how this reverb sounds with these settings that we left it at. I think that sounds incredible. Let's compare this plugin to even the stock Fruity Reverb 2, which people have used on countless of records. Let's just hear how that sounds. So I think we've got the Fruity Reverb 2 as close as I can get it to our Bloom, and we're just gonna just A/B this and, you know, see how it sounds. It doesn't sound like a real reverb. It sounds metallic. It sounds fake. So we're gonna mute this Fruity Reverb, which we have the same settings on it as Bloom. Turn the Bloom on, make sure Bloom's on, and our EQ'd Bloom engine, and do a little A/B. I could listen to that forever. And keep in mind, this acoustic guitar has nothing on it. Not even EQ'd. Nothing. One plugin can just bring it to life and give it so much emotion without even doing anything. We didn't have to mess with our pre-delay. We didn't have to mess with our decay. Everything is set up for you. You just click small, medium, large, or extra large, Hall. Make sure auto mode is on, and everything else is just mixing to taste. It's really that easy, guys.